Hi, welcome to class. We're the only two right now, but the other ones will show up eventually, right? I hate my life. I hate my life.
Hey, Professor Sunrise! Hello class, Professor Sunrise here. I know it has been a while, but you gotta give me some slack. I have been ill, but more importantly, World of Warcraft Season of Discovery Season 2 has come out, so your boy had to play that a little bit, and also the format was in a stalemate until Phantom Nightmare or whatever the set is called come out, and then afterwards it became super awkward to play Dragon Link, which we'll be taking a look in this video. So without further ado, don't forget to seal pass on the subscribe button, leave some feedback down below, and let's get right into the video. So, are dragons still playable this format? Of course, if you ask yourself this, you will have to take a look at two things, and it's of course the matchups in the format, and because of all of those matchup, what non-engine are people playing. And in my opinion, these are the most important things, and I don't think there's anything else. At least I don't really take a look at anything else if I ask myself the questions. So for the current matchups, we have overall, I'd say they are decent. There is Snake Eye variant, so Fire King, or the Synchro variant, or maybe the Rescue Ace variant, but I think mostly you will take a look at the first two things. Then we have Lab, purely branded and shifter decks in the form of Kastira, which all to some degree have a very decent matchup against Snake Eye. Lab can loop different dimension grounds, so it's really good against that. It also plays really well into all of the non-engine. Purely just has a very good matchup against most of the hand traps, and Noir is still just very good. Branded doesn't really give a damn about anything the Snake Eye deck puts on its end board, so it can just gas through that, and Mirror Jade is one hell of a card to out for the deck. And then shifter decks in the form of Kastira mostly play shifter and then prey on Snake Eye in that form. And of course you have random rogue decks like Centurion and all of the other decks which are played in the last few formats, which just can't really keep up with Snake Eye all too good. The matchups against all of the counters of the best deck in the format are good, which gives us a decent placement in the rock, paper, scissors format, which this game always has. So Snake Eye beats everything. The counters of Snake Eye beat it, and we, at least to some degree, beat the counters of Snake Eye. So that gives us a decent spot in there. Kastira is somewhat of a hard matchup, but I think the Kastira format showed that it's still winnable unless they draw shifter. And then at this point, there's like every deck has this spot where if it goes first and it draws the hard counter and it draws the floodgate, it will always win. Yeah, of course, shifter is a different beast because it can also hit you when you go first, but at this point, if you prepare yourself, in my opinion, it's very manageable to win if you go first and you get shifted. Of course, you need to draw your outs, but at that point, that is classic Yu-Gi-Oh! So far, so good, so it can't be that bad for Dragon Link, right? Well, the elephant in the room, Snake Eye is just a bad matchup on every aspect imaginable, where we just have to hope they draw less good than us. The problem is, their deck composition is just so much better mathematically, they will win way more than we do. Just compare the deck build to ours. They have 14 one-card starters, insane value of redundancy, so where half of the starters are extenders if they get hand-tripped or if they can just go uncontested. Think about Snake Eye Ash getting disrupted and then Bonfire, Search Populist, and it doesn't really matter whatsoever. Or their Bellstar enabling a Synchro variant or enabling another push if, for example, if your Ash gets Ash, for example. Add to that they then have access to 15 to 18 non-engine to play whatever they want to hurt us, and things are looking super rough. Playing into their board is next to impossible, so we have to go for hand traps, making our deck overall weaker, while also being a super uphill battle against the deck to begin with. This was manageable before, of course. In other formats, Unchained in a vacuum was a way better mid-range deck than we were, but Dragon Link had the very good direct matchup because all of the Bestials were really good against it, especially Drew's Worm being so good. People sided exclusively Drew's Worms to counter Unchained. So if the deck is in a vacuum, it's better, but we still have a good direct matchup. The rock, paper, scissors dynamic shifts, and we are still in a winning battle against that deck. Suddenly, we weren't the deck to beat the counters of the best deck in the format, but we were one of the counters for the best deck in the format, while also still having a very good matchup spread altogether. Remember, Lab, Tia were all in the format, and we had very good matchups across the whole board. Of course, you cannot one-to-one translate that because the format was not nearly as tier 0 or tier 1 as our current format is, but the point still stands. The format had just a way better matchup spread before than it has right now. Against Fire Kings, it's a whole different beast. While the difference in the deck builds is even bigger than it was against Unchained, their engine plays also super well into ours. Not only that we cannot break their board, Also, they play into our board super easily. For example, Seal is really bad against their prime 1-card starter in Snake Eye Ash. Normally, people going into battle phase to bait out Seal is fine, but because Fire King Snake Eye or Snake Eye Synchro whatever is such a good deck, it has so many ways to pop our board while building a strong board themselves and still having the follow-up to do something meaningful afterwards. And most importantly, the Seal bounce in the battle phase wasn't even really impactful because, like I showcased you guys, normal summoning Snake Eye Ash, it plays so well into Seal, it basically did nothing and the battle phase was basically just taken for free. In case it becomes the Diabellstar fodder, and that is just the cherry on top of like getting us out of the format. So overall, most of the matchups are still fine for us, but with Snake Eye probably being a tier 0 deck and Kastira, I'd say it's not outrageous to assume that more than 50% of our matchups are not gonna be good for us. Of course, things could change with Snake Eye maybe not being as good as suspected, or a new counter just being found and we have a good matchup against that. Maybe then it becomes manageable, but just from a matchup standpoint, it is not looking too crazy for Dragon Link right now. But that's only because Snake Eye is assumed to be a tier 0 deck. If it's only like a normal tier 0 deck, a tier 1 deck, and it has like a 20 to 30% representation, I think it is very fine to play, but it's probably gonna be a tier 0 deck, and at this point it's gonna be hard. While the matchups are fine overall, the hard matchups are really hard, and too plenty to push aside, the non-engine is also way more hostile against us, because we as a deck lose to everything which Snake Eye loses to. So Droll is very good against the deck, at least against the Fire King variant. People are going for the Synchro variant a little more, and Droll doesn't do as much against that deck. But Droll is in every deck right now, mostly in the main deck, so we have to prepare for that, which is doable. We've done it before. It's basically been a staple in every side deck for the last few formats anyways. So going heavy on non-engine, which we kind of have to do to somewhat beat Snake Eye to begin with anyways, it is a natural adaptation to the format, which we are super fine with. In my opinion, it's even more fun to play so, and it's also just really strong, so we don't really have a problem with that. The problem is that, like I said, we struggle with the same thing as Snake Eye does. So Shifter and different dimension grounds in the form of Labyrinth are in so many decks. So all of the decks which can play Shifter suddenly now start to play Shifter, and even if we had a good matchup against that, for example Purely, we do have a decent matchup against that, but that deck can play Shifter as well. Suddenly it becomes a way harder matchup for us, or different dimension ground being a side deck card for a lot of decks to play going first, or Labyrinth being good enough for it to be like a one-off side deck staple where they can side it in and then keep looping DDG with their lovely Labyrinth. Becomes from a very easy matchup to a little harder matchup, I'd say. I would still say it's favored for us, but they do have access into an auto win button for us, which they otherwise wouldn't have if the format would be looking different, and different dimension ground wouldn't be good against the best decks in the format. Why would a Labyrinth player ever think about playing different dimension ground if it wasn't good against the best deck in the format? So because Fire King has the same weaknesses as us, it's super Graveyard reliant, we just get hit in the crossfire in this rock paper scissors scenario of Yu-Gi-Oh, and we just get hit by it, which you really don't want to be at with the rogue deck in this format. You want to have the complete opposite weaknesses of the tier 1, tier 0 deck in the format, which we don't have whatsoever. So add all of those things together, and in my opinion, Dragon Link is just not a pick which makes sense at least from a competitive standpoint. You have a very bad matchup against the tier 0 deck or tier 1.5 deck, or 0.5, whatever you want to call it, whatever it's gonna be, while you still have decent enough matchups where it's not gonna be completely awful to go to a regional with it. It is still not a good pick when it comes to a competitive standpoint. Will I be still playing it? Hell yeah. I'm gonna try to do good at 2 regionals in this March, one on the 9th and one on the 24th. Sadly, I couldn't attend any of the other regionals, which they are in this region here in Germany for me. But if those will flop, I will take a look at a few other options for a deck. So let's hope this will not be happening and we still have a good pick with dragons in this upcoming format. I am still decently optimistic. I think I found a very decent deck build which is doing well in the current format. It plays a lot of non-engine, it is decently consistent, and most importantly, it's fun. No, I'm fucking kidding. It's still very good, and the Dragon engine, even if dumped down super hard, is still a lot to keep up with in my opinion. So let's hope it doesn't come to that where we have to take a look at other decks to play. And without further ado, I think class is dismissed. You guys are free to leave. Professor Sunreis out. Peace.